My company had a giant banner in the lobby that said, "We're not coworkers, we're family." They put it in every email signature, they said it at every meeting, and when my father died suddenly, they proved exactly what that word meant to them. Because when I asked for 3 days off for his funeral, my manager looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Family means making sacrifices. Can you attend virtually?"
I worked at Horizon Marketing Solutions for 6 years. 6 years of 80-hour weeks, missed holidays, and giving everything I had to a company that constantly reminded us we weren't just employees, we were family. Our CEO, Greg Thornton, was obsessed with this concept. Every town hall meeting started with him getting misty-eyed about how Horizon wasn't a corporation, it was a home. The lobby had that massive banner. Our email signatures all ended with "proud member of the Horizon family." We even had mandatory family dinners once a month where attendance was tracked and judged. And honestly, for a while, I bought into it. I was 28 when I started, hungry and eager to prove myself. When my manager at the time, Sandra, asked me to work through Thanksgiving, she framed it as family pitching in during the busy season. When I canceled vacations, it was because family doesn't abandon each other during crunch time. I climbed the ladder. I became a senior account manager. I trained new hires, saved struggling campaigns, and brought in 3 of our biggest clients. I was loyal. I was dedicated. I was, as they loved to say, a true Horizon family member. Then my father got sick. It started with a cough that wouldn't go away. Then came the diagnosis, stage 4 lung cancer. The doctors gave him 6 months, maybe 8 with treatment. I was devastated, but I tried to stay strong. I talked to my direct manager, Kevin, about potentially adjusting my workload so I could spend more time with my dad during his final months. Kevin nodded sympathetically. "Family comes first," he said, putting his hand on my shoulder. "That's what we're all about here. We'll figure something out." They figured out nothing. My workload actually increased. I was assigned to 2 additional accounts because another senior manager had left and they needed someone they could count on. When I pushed back, Kevin reminded me that Horizon Family is counting on you too, and that your dad would want you to stay successful. I worked through my father's chemotherapy appointments. I took conference calls from hospital waiting rooms. I answered emails at 2 in the morning after sitting by his bedside all evening. I was running on empty, held together by coffee and guilt and this desperate belief that if I just proved myself enough, the company would eventually come through for me. My father passed away on a Tuesday morning. I was on a client call when my mom called. I saw her name flash on my phone and I just knew. I excused myself, stepped into the hallway, and heard the words that shattered my world. I walked back into the office in a daze. I went straight to Kevin's desk. I could barely get the words out. "My father passed away this morning. I need to take bereavement leave. The funeral is Friday in Michigan." Kevin's face shifted to several expressions: surprise, discomfort, and then something I can only describe as calculation. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he said, but his tone was already transitioning to business mode. "How much time were you thinking?" "I'd need to fly out Thursday, funeral Friday, and I'd probably need Monday to help my mom with some arrangements, so Wednesday through Monday, 5 days. Kevin sucked air through his teeth. "That's a lot of time. You know the Morrison pitch is next week and the quarterly reviews." "Kevin," I said slowly, "my father just died." "I understand, and I'm deeply sorry, but you know how things are right now. The Morrison account alone is worth $2 million. Can we maybe do 3 days? Fly out Thursday, funeral Friday, back by Sunday?" I stared at him. 3 days, to bury my father, to comfort my mother, to say goodbye to the man who taught me to ride a bike, who drove 14 hours to help me move into my first apartment, who called me every Sunday just to hear my voice. "The viewing is Wednesday night," I said. "Family is flying in. I need to be there." Kevin sighed heavily, like I was being difficult. "Let me talk to HR and see what we can do. But Marcus, I need you to understand, the Horizon family needs you too. This is a critical time." I went home that day and cried for 4 hours straight. The next morning, I received an email from HR. The subject line was "Bereavement Policy Clarification." It explained that Horizon's official bereavement policy allowed for 3 days of paid leave for the death of an immediate family member. 3 days for my father. But it got worse. The email continued explaining that, given current business demands, they were asking if I could attend the funeral via video call and return to work by Thursday. They'd graciously extend my bereavement leave to include Friday as a remote workday if I could remain available for urgent matters. I read that email 17 times. Attend my father's funeral via video call, like it was a team stand-up, like I could just prop my laptop on a pew and mute myself during the eulogy. I called Kevin.
"Did you see this email?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I did, and I think it's a reasonable compromise," he said. "Look, I know it's not ideal, but the Morrison team specifically requested you for next week's pitch. Greg himself mentioned how important it is. If you're not there, my father is dead, Kevin. And we're all sorry about that, but family means sacrifice, Marcus. You know that. You've always known that." Family means sacrifice. The words echoed in my skull like a curse. I hung up and sat in silence for a long time. Then I made a decision. I was going to my father's funeral. I was going to be there for my mother, and if Horizon had a problem with that, they could fire me. I responded to the HR email. I stated clearly that I would be taking Wednesday through Monday off for bereavement, that I would not be attending remotely, and that I would not be available for work matters. I CC'd Kevin. I CC'd Greg Thornton himself. 30 minutes later, I received a meeting invite from Kevin. Subject line, urgent discussion, performance and commitment.
I need to stop here for a second because I want you to really understand what was happening. My father, the man who raised me, had just died, and my company, the one that called itself my family for 6 years, was scheduling a meeting to discuss my commitment because I wanted to attend his funeral. I still can't wrap my head around it. Subscribe if you think what they did next crossed every possible line, and tell me in the comments, have you ever worked somewhere that used the word family like a weapon? Because what happened in that meeting, I've never told anyone the full story until now.
I walked into that meeting expecting Kevin. Instead, I found Kevin, the HR director Patricia, and Greg Thornton himself, the CEO who loved to cry about family at every town hall. Greg gestured to an empty chair. "Marcus, please sit down. First, let me say how sorry we are for your loss." "Thank you," I said flatly. "We understand this is a difficult time," Patricia added, "which is why we wanted to have this conversation in person rather than over email." "The conversation about whether I'm allowed to attend my own father's funeral?" Greg held up his hands. "Nobody's saying you can't attend. We're just asking you to be flexible. The Morrison pitch is worth $2 million annually. Your expertise is essential. Surely your father would understand." "Don't," I cut him off. "Don't you dare tell me what my father would understand." The room went silent. Kevin shifted uncomfortably. Patricia's pen hovered over her notepad. Greg's expression hardened. "Marcus, I'm going to be direct with you. Your attitude lately has been concerning. We've made significant accommodations for your situation over the past several months, and frankly, we expected more gratitude, more commitment." "Accommodations?" I nearly laughed. "You increased my workload when my father was dying. I took calls from his hospital room. I worked 80 hours a week while watching him wither away. What accommodations?" "We allowed flexible scheduling," Patricia said, "and we're offering a very generous 3-day bereavement package." 3 days is your standard policy. That's not generous, that's baseline." Greg leaned forward. "Here's where we are, Marcus. You can take your 5 days, but I want you to understand that there will be consequences for that choice. We're a family here, and family members don't abandon each other during critical moments. If you're not here for the Morrison pitch, if you're not demonstrating the commitment we expect from a senior member of this family, then maybe we need to reevaluate your place in it." I stared at him. "Are you threatening to fire me for attending my father's funeral?" "I'm saying that every action has consequences. Family means sacrifice. Sometimes we have to choose." I stood up slowly. 6 years of loyalty. 6 years of missed holidays, canceled vacations, and endless sacrifice. All of it crystallized in that moment. "You want to talk about family?" I said quietly. "My father worked 40 years at a factory, blue collar, nothing fancy. And when his coworkers' parents died, when their kids got sick, when life happened, he covered their shifts, no questions asked, no threats, no manipulation, because that's what family actually does." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my work phone. I set it on the table. "You can have this back. I'm going to my father's funeral, and I'm not coming back." Greg's face reddened. "If you walk out that door, you're resigning. No severance, no unemployment, nothing." "Actually," I said, "threatening someone's job because they want to attend a funeral might be something my attorney would find interesting, especially since I've documented every conversation, every email, and every unreasonable demand over the past 6 months, including this meeting, which I've been recording on my personal phone."
The color drained from Patricia's face. Kevin's mouth fell open. Greg looked like he'd swallowed a wasp. "That's illegal," Greg sputtered. "You can't record without consent." "We're in a one-party consent state." I checked. My attorney checked too. I walked out of that room and never looked back. The funeral was beautiful. Heartbreaking, but beautiful. I stood beside my mother. I delivered a eulogy that I'd written in hospital waiting rooms between conference calls. I held my sister while she sobbed. I hugged relatives I hadn't seen in years. I was present, fully present. And when I returned home the following week, I filed a complaint with the Department of Labor and consulted with an employment attorney. The recording, combined with months of documented conversations and emails, painted a very clear picture of a hostile work environment and potential retaliation. Horizon's legal team reached out within 3 weeks. They wanted to settle. I agreed, not because I wanted their money, but because I wanted it over. The settlement included a significant payout, a neutral reference, and an agreement that they would review their bereavement policies. I later learned from a former colleague that my departure set off a chain reaction. Other employees started talking about their own experiences. The HR director, Patricia, quietly resigned. Kevin was demoted after 3 more complaints about his management style. And that giant "We're Family" banner in the lobby, it came down about 4 months later. Greg Thornton is still there, still crying about family at town halls. Some things never change. But I changed. I found a new job at a company that doesn't use the word family as a manipulation tactic. When I told my new manager about my father during the interview, she said, "I'm so sorry. Take whatever time you need to process that. Work will always be here. Your well-being comes first." That's what actual support looks like. No guilt, no threats, no pretending that quarterly profits matter more than human grief. My dad used to say that you learn who people really are during the hard times. He was right. Horizon Marketing Solutions taught me exactly who they were when I needed them most, and I'll never forget that lesson. The family companies talk about isn't real. It's a tool to make you work harder, sacrifice more, and feel guilty for having boundaries. Real family doesn't threaten you when your father dies. Real family doesn't ask you to zoom into a funeral. Real family shows up. I finally understood the difference. It just took losing my actual family to see it.
Thank you so much for listening to my story today. If any of this resonated with you, if you've ever worked somewhere that weaponized the word family to keep you compliant, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your experiences. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a like so more people can see it. And if you have your own workplace nightmare you want to share, submit it for a chance to be featured in an upcoming video. Your story might help someone else realize they're not alone. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, you're more than your job title.